Oh, tonight we got 'em. Goldy, the Sulk, and JC.
The typical, disgusting display. And it starts right now.
Happy birthday.
Oh,
to
me.
you.
Me. It's
Happy
about
birthday
me.
to
Me.
you.
Me.
Happy
Me.
birthday,
Me.
dear
Me.
Alec.
Wait, Goldy did record a message that I was supposed to play.
Oh,
I
let's
think
hear it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, it was just because I knew that today when I was talking to you about your birthday, I might get emotional, and I didn't want to miss what I wanted to say to you, so I recorded it.
Oh, so
Yes.
in other words, this is going to be a funny,
So I
mean
could just
thing.
play it.
Well, let me just say first, typical disgusting display. Welcome back, podcast for writers by writers who hate writing. Oh, I'm excited to hear this.
Okay.
Let's go, JC. Play Goldy's birthday message to me.
You.
Happy birthday.
I don't know. You're right. You might not have got through that.
First joke of the day. First joke of the day.
Oh, that definitely qualifies. Oh, now we got prefab first joke of the days. That's all the fixes in. I want a congressional hearing.
-1 joke of the day.
Yeah. You fans didn't get to hear what JC and I just got to hear before we started today,
so
which is so Goldy today has what I like to call the home court disadvantage, where you're back at your house in Bedford, Massachusetts, and as we talked about it a minute ago, Massachusetts, when you're here, unfortunately, you're family. So
Yeah.
it was tough for you to get to lock into the Wi-Fi. So where are you now?
Well, I'm in my rental car in my mom's driveway. And, when I picked up this rental car yesterday at Boston's Logan Airport, so I'm Hertz Gold. I don't want to brag.
Wow.
It's probably the best thing in my life is that
I'm President's Circle, so I'll see you when you get there.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get there. But, one of the great pleasures in life is you walk in, you see your name on the board.
Oh.
You go to your car.
Awesome.
You don't talk to anyone.
No one.
And you leave.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's how it goes.
So I see my name, spot 823.
Oh,
Go to my car. It's a Toyota Avalon. Fine.
Ooh.
Say to myself, it's clear sailing from here on in.
Sure.
Take the keys, go to the checkout. There's maybe a 6-car backup at the checkout.
Oh, boy.
There's all kinds of chaos.
Uh-oh.
Someone's trying to back up. People are waving. Someone tried to steal a rental car.
Oh my God.
Which is the dumbest thing you can do because there's 2 barricades.
Yeah, and those
spike
tires.
strips.
Yes.
The
And
spike
spike
strips.
And so they then were trying to madly back out, and then they were running around the parking lot like Benny Hill as they were being chased by Boston cops who, whatever is the worst, sort of most biased thing you could say about the body types of police officers was the reality of this chase.
Oh,
It
no.
was,
Yes.
they were not in fighting trim, shall we say.
No. Yes.
Brutal.
And you see these chases on TV, and the reality of Boston cop chases, all you hear is keys.
Oh.
It's just like keys.
Carrying way too much. First of all,
Yes.
I think they each have like 5 nightsticks.
Right.
It's just a clatter of nightsticks.
It's one for every night of the week.
Yeah, chasing someone who was pretty spry and athletic all over this concrete parking structure.
Oh, God.
So it took me about half an hour to get out. But and then the Hertz employee, the face of the company,
Yes.
who when I go to check out in the booth and just show my license and get the contract, the face of Hertz says to me, "These fucking idiot criminals trying to fucking get a car."
Welcome to Boston.
That's amazing.
That's how you should be speaking when you're wearing a company's shirt.
Do you need a map? I love the idea of the chase in the parking lot with the fat Boston cops because those kinds of things ultimately devolve into just flag football jukes. Like they get close enough where the guy's literally just kind of doing a stutter step to get away from them, restarting the whole chase. Oh, I love that.
That was my welcome back home.
Right.
Welcome
it's
back.
perfect.
My hometown, which, by the way, like everything here is, you're like, when you walk by a business and you say, how is this still here? That's the entire region. How is this still here? It's all stores with sort of sun-bleached bedpan boxes in the windows.
Sounds like you know.
Appliance shops that aren't a Best Buy,
Right.
that just have a TV that looks too old to be in a display window, because no one's going to be walking by, see that TV and stop and say, like, my God,
I have to have that.
a 28-inch Sharp? How did they get it?
Sharp.
Oh, when I say sharp, I mean business.
Ooh.
I love the sun-bleached bedpan in the display window might be one of the most accurately specific references I've heard in a long time. It is crazy. And more than all these stores that are still open that shouldn't be, then all we do in this area is get angry when they close the stores that should be closed. So it's like, they're closing Spags? What are they doing? It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
See sun-bleached bedpan. Well, that's a very funny way of putting it. So as you so sweetly referenced at the top of the pod, it was my birthday, in fact, yesterday, my 50th birthday.
Oh,
a big
my
Wow.
goodness. I
And
know.
so I'll get into it in high note later. But one of the things that was exciting for me was Tall put together this video reel of friends and family saying basically happy birthday. And it was so I got to watch it while on the toilet taking a shit.
Perfect.
So I had
Perfect.
plenty
A
of
shift.
time to get through it all. And
Did
Goldy,
you shit a 5?
and it was closer to a 0. Oh, as I told you, it was the Soupy Bowl from the Super Bowl. So I'm watching these videos, and JC and Stu, you guys had a very sweet video, and Goldy, yours was very funny. But I wanted to highlight a couple of people who I know are friends who sent in very, very funny videos. So Steve Callahan, who
Yes.
we work with,
Awesome.
great Family Guy writer. He's been a guest on the podcast. His video was, maybe his wife was filming, coming around a corner outside, like in a little wooded area. And there's Steve in full Eagle Scout uniform, and he's affixing a knot to a tree branch. And he proceeded to talk me through how to tie this knot. It was so perfectly
awesome.
Steve. And then David Goodman,
Yes.
who I think we have a sound clip.
Moving
of him
on.
There he is. So David ran Family Guy back at its most popular stage, and we've worked with him several times. He's a great guy. Been on the podcast. So we used to have this joke we called a room bit. We did an episode on that too, where our room bit was David because he has a distinctive voice that sounds sort of like Ray Romano. We used to do this bit of imitating David singing Billy Joel in the shower.
Awesome.
So people in the room would be like, "Oh, my downister Alexa," and various songs. So his video to me was him in the shower, and I could only see the top of his head. It was like under the nozzle, the camera, and he sang like little clips of like 6 Billy Joel songs while he was washing his hair
Yes.
furiously. So that was great, David. Thank you for that.
That sounds awesome.
Also, I just want to say Mike D and Artie, who are talented younger writers. I mean, they're not younger anymore.
Yeah,
they're younger
they're
than
like
we
45.
are. Yeah, they're younger than we are.
They're awesome. Love them.
But they also, their videos were hilarious. Artie, through his whole video, someone was holding a very realistic looking gun to his head, which I thought was very funny. And Mike D did sort of a funny, like Boston area third person character talking about like, hey, my friend Mikey says you're pretty cool. It was pretty well done.
Awesome.
And it ended with LL Cool J's "Mama Said Knock You Out," which is
nice.
my favorite, my go-to at karaoke. So that was really great.
Didn't know
The whole thing was just awesome. Then,
well, everyone was just so glad to be asked to do it.
Oh, I'm sure. I can only picture. And I can only imagine Tall was very laissez-faire about when the videos came in.
No reminders or pushes. Yeah. No nudges.
No, but anyway, it was awesome for me to watch. So thank everyone who contributed. But, on your birthday, you get a lot of that stuff. And especially on a big birthday like 50. So more people were coming out of the woodwork to do more things. And it was very nice. And one of the very nice things that happened later in the day was when I looked on Instagram and you, Goldy, put up a tribute to my birthday, and it, said, this guy turns 50 today. He's made me laugh for over half of my life. Thanks for being so hilarious. Happy birthday, bud. And I'm flipping through, and these are all pictures that you have. So I hadn't seen them. They were like interesting to me. I'm like, oh, I've never seen this picture. That's cool. Awesome.
Creepily massaging your mom.
Video game.
Playing a video game when you're like 30, I guess.
Yeah, I had all dark hair then. So then I get to the last picture of the bunch. And I'm looking at it, and it's like a screen capture of something. And then it's a screen capture of the exact words that you had in your post. And I thought, oh my God, he posted this on Facebook too. That is so nice. Then I looked closer. It was my post to you on your 50th birthday. Verbatim. And it was like I could not have walked into that door any harder. So that was hilarious.
Really well done.
Oh, the prestige.
God. Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yes,
it was one of somebody pointed that out.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
It was so funny.
Well, I'll say something sincere now.
Yes.
This way, because we're going to celebrate your birthday this week, and this way I just don't have to say it later.
Oh, no, you may have to. Tall may make you.
Oh God, I hope not. I'll just play this recording. But
I'll send it to you.
It's gonna be like Livia Soprano's funeral when nobody would say anything.
Come on, surely someone.
Yeah.
They broke the mold.
Yeah.
They broke the mold.
Yeah.
No. So we met when we were 22. We've known each other now well over half our lives.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And we had this bonding experience of this horrible stand-up. We were both not doing well, but I don't know that I've seen anyone sort of from the time I knew them do better for themselves, both personally and professionally, grow so much.
Aww.
I can't recall a time with you where I've ever been bored or thought like, I want to get rid of this guy. Like you've just
back at you.
Such an easy person for me to be around. You're such a big part of my life. You've been so generous to me personally and professionally. But even if you weren't, I'd still love you. So,
wow!
I think you're a fan. People don't realize how good a guy you are. They also don't realize how bad a guy you are. And what I like is you're meticulously honest about who you are. You do what you want to do. I think you live your life in a way that is sort of aspirational because you just are probably the most honest person I've ever met.
Wow. Oh my God.
Even in your dissembling and your mendacity.
Yeah. That's good. Buy it back a little because I'm uncomfortable with that assessment. But no, that's very sweet of you to say. And I would say all of those things back to you.
Relentlessly generous.
Yeah, because I want people to like me. I want people.
You don't have to. You can just cut it off. People like you.
Yes.
All right.
Oh wow.
Oh,
for the next 50, you can turn the tap off.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I may need it. I will need every drop of water in that tap. Well, we were going to talk about something else, but that was very nice. So let's just use that Joe-mentum to roll right in to Johnny Jokes.
Whoa! From Massachusetts, here's Johnny, brought to you by Johnson Fit.
Brought to you by a store going out of business in Bedford, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right.
How can you make a living selling only lace?
Oh, I'm telling you, when there were a lot of Irish in the area, they love the lace.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get started with some sad news out of the gate. Legendary composer Burt Bacharach passed away last week at the age of 93.
He gone!
Yeah, he gone. Record store owners are now featuring his albums prominently, which is good news for Burt's estate, as over the past few years, they've gone Bacharach.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bacharach in the discount rack.
Oh, that would have been better. There's
After
our song.
he's dead of a heart attack.
Oh!
Ack.
You ought to know by now.
Nice. Well, no, that's where the can of beans is the discount rack.
Oh, yeah. What store sells both records and beans?
Billy Joel's store, apparently. All right. Second joke. A Delta passenger claims that a flight attendant told his wife to, quote, "Stop looking at me with that stupid face." The wife is pressing charges, and the husband has a new hero. I'm glad you laughed at that
Set
line.
up itself.
I know. I was loving that story. Okay. The Mars Corporation will have to pay a hefty fine after 2 employees at their Pennsylvania factory fell into a vat of chocolate. Yeah. Never missing an opportunity, Mars has recently announced their new candy bar, 5 Musketeers.
Yeah.
2 people fell in.
I
Two of
thought
them.
their new candy bar, Daryl and Vinny.
That's good. Yeah, that's an improvement. I like that. And finally, for Johnny One, journalist Heather Radke has released a new book called Butts, a Backstory, which purports to be a comprehensive cultural history of the female backside. Critics say it's a great book, but it can only be opened once a year on your birthday. The Long Way Home. I couldn't resist the actual story itself.
So funny.
Fantastic setups this week.
Oh, thank you. That's what I go for. All right, Johnny 2.
All right. Well, mysteries continue to swirl about the objects being shot out of the sky. Conspiracy theorists say they're a precursor to an alien invasion set to destroy Earth this week. Welcome news to every man who forgot Valentine's Day.
That's good. I knew you were going to deal with that topic.
A New Jersey restaurant is facing backlash for not allowing children under 10. The backlash is coming from parents with children over 10. Okay. Alec Baldwin's cursed Western Rust has resumed production after a tragic shooting death on set. There have been changes, though. It's now about a cowboy who settles his disputes with pillow fights. Okay.
That's a good one.
A British woman searching the internet found a pornographic movie of herself that's a deep fake. Good news, so far her husband is buying it. And finally, sandwich chain Subway is trying to sell the company. Potential buyers are asking, is there a McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or any other company closer to the hotel?
I did it, I swear, like 4 times.
Look at that face. Goldie's giving the hit.
Like,
the
what
hit,
are you
the
doing?
music.
Wake up.
I'm just a guy who's been shot, who's looking for a place to die, but there are just bodies all over the floor.
Well, once again, you went to joke 5. You could have stopped at 4.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me that I don't just allow myself to do 4.
You're telling
Overachiever.
Casson jokes in a car.
I know.
Wow.
That's part 1.
This is where I thought I'd be at this point in my life.
All right. Well, we're
Hiding in a rented Toyota, recording monologue jokes.
Well, I want to pull that first time we tried to record when you were in the car and edit it into a video for YouTube. There's a lot to wade through because we're dealing with all those tech difficulties, but it's pretty funny. There's some really funny things.
That might be a better video for you too than YouTube. Like, just meaning us, not the band. Forget it. Cut that. Cut that part. Oh, folks, we are incredibly excited and lucky today. We have a legitimate Saturday Night Live cast member in our midst today. I know we've danced around this. We've had writers and former this and former that. And of course, you know, Goldy, JC, and I have all worked there and either been fired in disgrace or left on our own accord. But today, we have a hilarious current cast member on Saturday Night Live. Miss Heidi Gardner is here with us today. Heidi, thank you so much for coming. We are so excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. And it's always a delight to hear from you, JC. So it's my pleasure.
Yay.
That's right. Now let's get this out of the way up top. You and JC know each other pretty well from your JC from your time at Saturday Night Live. So talk a little bit about how you two became connected there.
Well, I mean, I think I started maybe a season or two before you arrived, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I really wanted, the listeners to know about you was that, okay, you came in, what year did you start? 16?
2017, towards the end of 2017. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I believe you single-handedly changed the culture for the better behind the scenes of SNL.
Thank you, JC.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see that at home, but Heidi was putting her hand over her heart.
Yes, it's true. So when I had started there, I did my social, quote unquote, social research and made sort of fast friends with people who I trusted, and they taught me how to navigate the political minefields that are SNL. And I believe before you got there, it was it's still like this, but it was very cutthroat and competitive amongst the cast members and the writers. And when you arrived, you obviously were sucked into that, but I believe that you just openly showed your love and support for all your fellow cast members, your writers, the production staff, the crew members, everybody. And it felt like you didn't want to leave anyone unacknowledged, and the same holds true today. I see you with all your posts, very supportive. Now, was this something that you intended to do, or is this just your nature, or maybe both?
I don't know that it's something that I intended to do. I do think it is my nature, but I do think I have a Midwesterner, people pleaser, rule follower to my detriment or not, that makes me kind of, give love in the way that I want, but also, fall in line in the way that I think I'm supposed to, even if no one's telling me that. I'm an observer and kind of like, okay, I should do this and this and this. Yeah. And it's such a compliment that you saw that in me, but it's a good reminder and something I've tried to remind myself of this season, because now, crazily, I'm the most
veteran
senior woman there, is that, yes, there's competition. Yes, it could be cutthroat. Yes, everybody wants to shine. And even at the heart of who I am, I've gone through lots of feelings that have to do with that, like sometimes when you're starving, it's like, I need more, and it's hard to see what's around you and that others need more too. And I've fallen for that before, and I don't like it. I think the true heart of me is love, and love and support creates more love and support. And so it's a really, really big goal for me being there now, that even when I'm like at my most starved, that I'm also giving out to others, because I just think that creates an energy that's good. It's a good teammate. And just knowing that, like, okay, I'm getting all I need in this moment. Things will shift, but I haven't always been there, and I haven't always been at my best, but I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. Boy,
Thanks.
we could take a lesson from that around here. I think JC is the only one who's that way on this podcast.
No, you guys are like that too.
Now, we had Seth Meyers on last week, and I think I made the mistake in his intro of referring to him as affable. because then instantly, once I said that, he sort of locked onto that. He's like, oh, affable, like he's heard that 1,000 times. Now, when I was preparing for what to say for your intro today, a word kept popping into my mind, which was bubbly. And I'm wondering, is that something that you hear a lot?
I don't know that I've ever heard bubbly. I like bubbly.
Oh, yes. Good.
I like that.
I should have used it. I got scared. Seth Meyers, that meanie scared me.
I like that.
Okay, good. So from here on out, I'll call you as bubbly. Now, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording today, but you are from Kansas City. So you are a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. So we are coming off a huge weekend for you. Now, tell us, I'm hearing you went to the game?
Yes, I went to the Super Bowl. I can't believe it. Me and my best friend Michelle went, and Michelle and I have known each other since second grade. We grew up in Kansas City, been watching games since then. She's now in New York too, so we watch games together every Sunday. And it was crazy. 2 weeks ago during the AFC Championship, I was at her apartment and she was like, okay, what are we doing for the Super Bowl? And I was like, Michelle, I think I'm going to try to go. And she was like, no, I have to watch it with you.
Oh my God, goosebumps.
And we were just so like conflicted. And I was like, well, I'm not sure. And then once I got tickets and I put it out to her, she was like, I'll go. And then suddenly we're just at the Super Bowl on Sunday, these two little Chiefs fans. And it was, it was, everything and more because they also won. But there were moments.
What a game.
Where I was accepting that they might not win. And and we were just trying to be grateful just to be there and everything. But in the final 2 minutes, I could barely watch. I was just like sitting in my seat and I was imagining red and yellow confetti coming down and Mahomes
you got it.
holding the Lombardi trophy. And there were even some Eagles fans around me that even after the Chiefs won, they were like, you were conjuring something. You were doing something. You were manifesting something. I think
it's all Heidi.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you were surrounded by Eagles fans and still have all your teeth is quite an accomplishment because they're sort of known as not the most gracious fans, but they are good fans. They are dedicated fans.
They were such good fans. There was only one that particularly got on my nerves, but everyone was awesome and nice. But there was one when Mahomes got hurt that was calling him a limper. Oh. And like I said, I'm a Midwesterner, people pleaser, rule follower. Probably wouldn't, typically get in a confrontation. And I was hearing him say that and he was like, oh, he's limping, limper. And I turned around and I was like, he's still the best. He's better than yours. And he was like, no, he's not. He's a limper. And I went back to my seat and then I heard him continue to call him a limper. And I walked down and I was just like, dude, that's just not nice. And then my friend Michelle was like, you gotta stop engaging. I was like, you're right. I don't know what. Yeah.
You should have said, maybe, sir, it sounds like you're projecting something about your experience in the bedroom. And I'm not here for that. It's as JC will attest. I'm a huge New England Patriots fan, and so obviously it follows logically that I'm a huge Tom Brady fan.
Yes.
And now you guys have Patrick Mahomes,
What's up, Mahomes?
who is like, potentially the next Tom Brady or the next even better. He's fantastic. So just talk a little bit about, because, we get hung up in performances and writing and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just nice to know people on like a real fan level. He's transformed your city, Patrick Mahomes. And doesn't that talk a little bit about what the pride that somebody like that just gives you on a daily basis?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we've got a unicorn on our hands.
You do.
And I think, and everybody, including the management at the Chiefs, I've heard the VP, Brett Veach, say, I have a unicorn and I have to put pieces around that unicorn to make that unicorn unicorn. And I think that's what we all feel like in Kansas City. And having, we would be tried and true Chiefs fans no matter what. We've been through a lot of heartbreaks, but we are a sports town. We love our team and we will come out and support Arrowhead every single year. And this is the first time we've had a franchise quarterback, and exciting. And
Yeah.
we're still, now it's been 5 years in a row, AFC championships that we've made it to, but I think we're still in shock. Like, people are always asking me, they're like, all right, Heidi, you know, like for the Super Bowl, they're like, you feel good? Like, I'm like, I never get cocky. I had years of things not going the right way. So I stay humble. That's why I was like quietly meditating at the game and just seeing, like, I am a humble fan who is humbled by Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this is, I just read a quote yesterday that was like, he's so cool because he's like a kid out there playing on the field, having so much fun, like, you know, just sometimes, you know, passing the ball under his arm, just like improvisation and fun to him. But also, he's a man that can do the job. So it's just this really cool thing of like, nothing has been dulled yet. It's like a kid and a man coming together and
totally.
That's perfect.
He's totally having fun out there. And I'm jealous that you get to now live through a decade of excellence. So let's stick with Kansas City here for a minute. I was reading that you went to a Catholic, all-girls Catholic high school.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because I went to an all-boys elementary school.
Wow.
And I found that it was good for comedy just because it's so absurd being in a one-sex school. And I can only imagine that putting the element of God on top of like an all one gender school. Were you having like funny, irreverent thoughts going through high school?
It's funny. I think I was a little unaware of I didn't grow up religious, but, and I certainly didn't grow up being able to afford a private Catholic all-girls school, but my mom willed it to be. She was like, this is a good school. And so it was my first time like being in religion classes. And honestly, I think, you know, had I been religious and like rebelled, I could have really been more of like a certain type of like Catholic school student. And but because it was my first time with it, I was like, oh, mass, like I want to try that. That bread and wine. Or I remember one time in a religion class, they were like, you know, God's last name is not damn it. And I was like, oh. And so one time in the car, my mom, you know, said, God damn it, like to another driver. And I quoted my teacher and I was like, Mom, God's last name is not damn it. And she was like, you don't have to listen to everything they say at that school, by the way. Like,
no, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, so what, just to be clear, what is God's last name? Is it Reynolds? What is it?
I think it is Reynolds or Richardson.
Okay.
I think it starts with an R.
I knew it was an R. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So now I also read that, and I'm sure you've had to talk about this more times than you care to, that on your way out of high school, you were voted most likely to become an SNL cast member.
Yes.
I mean, is that something, was that because I read also that you did some comedy sketches in high school. Was it because of that, or did they just feel like you had something? Like, can you tell why that was?
Yeah, I think it was because I never did plays or anything acting wise, but we would have these school assemblies. And I think everyone was just kind of like, even the upperclassmen just knew I was like low key funny. Like I said, I wasn't like, you know, on the stage or anything like that, but they were like, she's funny. Like, you know, we can tell her. I remember a couple of upperclassmen were like, do the dance they did in Dumb and Dumber when they're in those tuxedos, you know, and I would just do that in the hallway, you know? And so we'd have some school assemblies where it was like, we need someone to play like Jeff Probst of Survivor, like, you know, and I was like, I'll do it. You know, and then did some like just random, I remember doing a scene from Waiting for Guffman for the talent show, like with another friend that was just kind of like, want to do this? And I was just like, okay, I'm down. So
what scene was it?
It was like the Penny for Your Thoughts song.
Oh, yeah. That was so great. With those little steps, those little weird steps that he took. Yeah.
And
well, you got good source material.
Yes. I love that movie. So yeah, they voted me most likely to be on SNL. And I remember I thought that was awesome. But this other like more obvious funny girl in our class, Sarah Popa, who I think was like the class clown and just hilarious and very outgoing. she got most likely to be a TRL VJ. And at the time I was like, oh, I want that one.
Oh, that's so funny because we know Damon.
Yeah, we work
Fahey.
with a TRL VJ.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he's one of the writers on
now.
Family Guy is Damon Fahey.
Yes.
Who used
Oh
to
my
be,
God, yes.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah, he's a really great guy.
He really is.
That's so funny, that connection.
I know.
Yeah, so you're voted most likely to be on SNL, but you're sort of low-key funny and kind of not the class clown. It's interesting that you talk about school assemblies because those were really the moments to be funny in our high school as well. I remember my friend John Viner, who was not asked to be a part of this podcast, he's also a writer on Family Guy, and we went to high school together, and different clubs would ask us to make their announcements in assembly.
Oh.
Yes.
And so we would make like an audio tape, an actual cassette tape of an announcement, and they would just, because this was, the carefree late 80s, early 90s, they would just play the tape, and inevitably there'd be something incredibly irreverent and offensive on there. We would get called into somebody's office.
Yeah.
And so we eventually had to go through a system where we would make these tapes. We then had to present them to the most joyless teacher who would sit there in front of us with his fists on his forehead listening to our tapes. And I'll never forget, there was one tape where my friend John and I edited a 40-second burp together, as part of it.
It's
and we just
impressive.
had to sit there watching him watch that with no expression. And then he just lifted his head and he's like, "That's fine. That seems fine."
Oh my God. That seems
It was
very
just
Family
when
Guy.
you said school assemblies, that really hit me where I live.
Yes.
So then you went to college. You went to two colleges, I believe, and
Yes.
you left before you graduated. I'm wondering, your mom, who pushed you to help you get into this Catholic girls' high school, how did she feel about you leaving college before you graduated?
It's interesting. I kind of felt like I feel like high school is like you got to get this done. And then,
Yes.
and probably it was expensive too. It's
Yeah.
let's spend our money well. And then college gets more expensive. And it was a little bit okay. I mean, I don't know. We don't have to keep spending the money. It didn't
Right.
feel like as big of a deal when I said I was going to drop out as I thought it would be, because there at the time was just such a stigma around it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of just shame and was scared about it, just because none of my friends were going to drop out. They were having a great experience and it's not that I didn't have a good experience socially. I did, and I loved my friends, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided I was going to do hair and drop out and go to school for hair. But I had that shame around it. So I was like, well, what if I went and did hair in LA? That sounds more legit. So I just kind of said that, and then I did it. But I think back about it now and I'm just like, Jesus, that was a totally scared, shame-based decision that I made
Right.
with no money. I barely saved anything. My brother definitely helped me out when I moved. And yeah, just what a leap. I had no plans of doing anything comedically, acting-wise.
It's interesting because I've heard you say that on a couple of interviews that I watched. And do you think maybe subconsciously, I mean, because to move to LA, LA is an industry town, as you know, and the industry is not hair, it's entertainment. So do you think that somewhere inside you felt like, well, I'll go out there for the salon, but maybe, who knows, I'm in the right place?
No.
Did any part of you think, no, really?
I really thought I could maybe do hair and makeup on sets, and that would,
Right.
I was
Right.
obsessed with movies, TVs, pop culture, music, SNL, all that stuff. But I really was just I am a fan. I quote this stuff. I know a lot about it. And so I just felt that's going to be the thing that's going to bring me the closest to it. I can work on these people. And then once I was out there and everything's kind of for copy and credit, I was like, oh, I have to make money to pay rent. So then I started working in an actual salon and just got more stable. and wasn't really doing on set work. So it was kind of like everything was shifting. I was like, well, now, I mean, I'm not really working on celebrities or these movie stars. I'm just working on like people who, you know, but I like my job. And so I really didn't see it coming. I have to be
That's
honest.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And now because you mentioned the word quote, are you, and because I watched another one of your sketches, the Deep Quotes sketch with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
And which was very funny. And also it again really spoke to me because I feel like I'm kind of one of those people when people throw out like a tiny quote that how could anyone ever identify it? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's from, and I love that you guys focused in on Captain Phillips. That seemed very humorous to me. But was that, so you mentioned that you were quoting these things. So as a kid growing up and when you consumed entertainment, were you one of those kids who like could just come back with the quotes and you would just remember stuff like that a little more easily?
Yes, completely. I mean, even just like it was a quote, I mean, sometimes that can be like polarizing to people and stop a conversation because kids would be talking about like how funny like Dumb and Dumber would be. And and they'd be like, oh yeah, like that X-Lax scene on the toilet, like where he's exploding. And I'm like, yeah. And the way that Jim Carrey, like when he's like just twisting the bottle of X-Lax open and like what his eyes look like when he's doing and they were like, yeah, I don't really remember that part. But I was just like,
you were into the details. You were into the details of comedy.
And not necessarily like the most obvious, like funny parts, but just
totally.
Yeah.
Again,
It's really
I
similar to
completely
you.
relate to that. And you're significantly younger than I am, but my equivalent for that is Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation with Chevy Chase. And, you know, there are quotes from that people can do back and forth. But there was always something that I would talk about, just like you. I'd break into a conversation and ground it to a halt by saying, oh, yeah, and that scene where they do an insert shot of Chevy's hand picking up a quarter to put in the vibrating bed. And they're like, what do you mean insert? What does that mean? I'm like, oh, trust me, it's very funny. And then all of a sudden the people are dissipating around me and I'm, you know, standing alone again. But I think... moment, I just have to put this out in the world since we're on this topic. There's a moment in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where... I'm going to know it.
I hope you do. Where, you know, their car has completely been burnt to a crisp and they get pulled over by Michael McKean and he's just like, do you really think this car is road safe? And the way John Candy goes, yes, I do. Like, it's so earnest, honest. It's not even like going for any sort of joke. Yes, I do is not written as a funny line, but just like how much he's trying to earnestly convince this man that this like confidently. And I find that to be one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
I love that. I love John Candy. We on this podcast, we do something usually at the end of each week where we do our top 5 list, and a couple weeks ago we did top 5 people other than your family who you'd bring back to life, and my number 1 was John Candy.
That's right.
Because he was so sweet, especially in that movie, and I know exactly that quote you're talking about. And right afterwards, when he's like, "Oh, the radio's clear as a bell," you know, like that whole scene is just so great. And actually, you can watch a longer version of that scene on YouTube. It was cut down. Yeah,
good to know. Okay.
Go treat yourself after this podcast.
I will.
So now I was watching an interesting thing where they had you on KTLA Channel 5, you know, doing an interview with them. It was probably from about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And you mentioned that when you were working at the salon, a friend of yours suggested that you go and try out for the Groundlings. So talk a little bit about that. Like, was it just something that your friend knew you were funny or thought you might be a good fit for that group?
Yeah, I remember her name's Rachel, we had just become friends and she was like, come see me perform tonight at the Groundlings. I'm doing like an improv show. And I'd always heard of the Groundlings. Like I totally knew that's where Will Ferrell came from, Kristen Wiig. But I hadn't been yet in LA. So I see the improv show on a Thursday night and I was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then she's like, well, come back on Saturday night. There's a sketch show. It's just like a mini SNL. So I go and I see the sketch show. And the two things I walked away with were, oh, I'm so glad that I know about this now, because whenever people visited LA, like I was almost like overwhelmed by like, what do I take people to? I was like, oh, I can always take them to a Groundlings show now. Like this delivers, this is really funny. So it was just almost this relief. Like I have a thing that I can show people.
That's so relatable for LA people because there's nothing to do in LA.
Know.
Yes, it was just like, huh. And then I also, Melissa McCarthy was a groundling at the time, and this was pre-Bridesmaids. So I saw her perform and was just like, why isn't that like the biggest movie star in the world?
I know.
Like
she must have dominated that stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, Bridesmaids came out, and everything made sense in the world. But afterwards, like I was just telling Rachel, and Rachel is incredible as well. I was like, oh my God, that was just like the most fun thing ever. I loved it. And she was like, well, you need to take a class there. And I was like, oh, I'm not an actor, And she was like, well, you leave me like 7-minute voicemails in character. Like, I know you can do it. And I was kind of like, I don't know. And I told my brother, and he was like, Heidi, I've been waiting for you to say this like our entire life. I'll pay for your classes at Groundlings.
Oh my God.
And
that's so nice. Your brother sounds
Your brother
awesome.
Justin, who's amazing. We love him. Stu and I both love him very much. Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a great way to get into that. Now, something I was thinking about when I was reading about that, and obviously, as you mentioned, the Groundlings history in terms of the performers they've churned out, yourself included, is incredible. But is that a route you'd even recommend to someone today? And I ask that because it feels like the world has changed even since your time there in terms of how comedy is disseminated and how we kind of find out about new funny people. Do you think the Groundlings still has a place and can still provide that kind of comedy firepower?
I think it definitely still has a place. I mean, I always remember when I was like heavy into the Groundlings, performing there all the time and around what I thought to be were the funniest people in the world to me, all of my colleagues. And, they were. I kept on being like, why isn't, and this isn't just me, I was like, why isn't SNL scooping up all these people? I'm around like the best.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got to SNL that I realized, oh, I get why it's not all Groundlings. Like, I pop in a certain way because I studied there and it's like character based, and then you have like stand-ups that they hire that pop in a different way that make the show seem more edgy and fresh in some ways, but we all, and then like UCB, which is, might be heavier improv in a way. And just like, you get some more like off the cuff performers. Like, I was like, oh, I get why SNL is more of a motley crew. And like, it would just seem the same tone if it was just all Groundlings, or it would be the Groundlings and this is SNL. And so my thing would be like, I mean, I don't know how I would evolve comedically now, but at the time, like that fit my point of view. And I'm glad I went on that walk, but I see like comedians that are coming up now that like do shorter things, are on TikTok, all of these things. And, like I've never even leaned into like, even though I could maybe be more successful, like I'm like, yeah, I don't know. My brain just isn't there to make videos.
Right.
Just like, that's just not my thing. But if it's someone's thing, like go do that and like hit it as hard as you can and get all the reps in that. So yeah, I definitely think there's a place, Groundlings, UCB, IO, Second City, all these schools, like they breed incredible performers that I think are pros,
Yeah. Well, I think that, and that's good advice. And I think the best piece of advice in there, which we've heard from other very talented people, is like, just, if you're going to do something, really lean into it, and as you say, get your reps in.
Well, the other thing I think with like with Groundlings and Second City is that because they are live performers as opposed to videos, SNL is live. Like people forget that. Like I've seen the fear in the eyes of my friends just about to go out onto the live set for SNL. And then that fear just melts away, or appears to melt away, and they're live in front of millions of people. So I don't know if video can really help with that. I don't know if anything can help with that in terms of prepare you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess, SNL has led the way in comedy for so many years, and including leading the way into, they predated TikTok with their Lazy Sundays and their video pieces that kind of, rolled the carpet out for platforms like TikTok and the Instagram videos. So obviously we're as mixed as my personal relationship is with SNL, I still love it and tape it and watch it religiously and can't get enough of it. But while we're talking about it, and you mentioned Will Ferrell earlier, I was there as a writer's assistant when Will Ferrell started on the show. And one of the things that I remember is his audition tape, being passed around and looking at it and just being like, who is this guy? He is so goddamn funny. So I'm wondering, do they still do the auditions the same way there? Did you have to go to 30 Rock and do an audition in front of Lorne and his producers like they did then?
Yeah, I had, it was kind of a crazy 2.5, 3 weeks for me, because my first audition was actually a showcase at Groundlings, and that was going to be for some producers and maybe a couple writers that were there. And I really saw that as like a super advantage, like home field. I knew Groundlings for the showcase was going to pack the house with students that loved coming to the shows. I could invite people. It was going to be friends and family. And it was okay, that's going to feel really good and supportive,
Yeah.
So why not take a big swing? And so I had a great showcase there, and I got the audition, went to 30 Rock, and they were just have her do, they told my agents and managers, have her do the exact same set, and so it's okay, that was, I always feel that first audition I did at 30 Rock, I was those are my starters. This is my, my championship team. And, after I did it, I kind of blacked out. I was just I think I heard a laugh. Was that good? Was that bad? Your anxiety sets in and you have no idea. And then, but you always read the things where it's well, if you get a meeting, it's a good sign. But I heard no one got meetings and everyone flew home the next day. So I was well, that's not good news. But I was also well, but no one got a meeting. So I didn't know what it meant. Yeah. And then about 4 days later, I heard they want you to come back, audition again. But, they want to know, you can come up with new material in a week. So they want you to do a completely new set.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
And I was just that was my team. I did everything I had.
Yeah. No, now trade Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and go win it with, Chad Henne.
But that is a great metaphor because, and I always think about it because I was I felt desperate. And then I was suddenly wait, I've now been performing at the Groundlings. I was just doing show after show after show. And I was going through characters and sketches and rejections and failures like crazy. And I started being I looked back just at all I'd done in the last 1.5 years there. And I was okay, wait a second. I tried this sketch out. It did not work as a sketch, but I remember people liked this character. How do I do this character for 10 seconds? How do I do this one? And it is actually the Chiefs this season because we traded in the off season a lot of our best players because we couldn't handle the salaries anymore.
Tyreek
and
Hill.
We got we basically filled our bench with rookies or free agents and all these things. And I always think my second audition was my bench, and they got to just shine, come out and play.
Awesome.
And that's what got me the job. And so
That's so cool.
Awesome.
Now, oh God, because nothing is ever easy in life. You have this fantastic life experience where you've made it to the top of a comedy pyramid. You get on SNL, and then you realize when you get there, you're starting from zero again, and you again have to continue the football analogy. You have to keep fighting for first downs, from the minute you get there. So what I remember from being there was really being fascinated by these very funny performers who were very insecure, as we all are,
Yeah.
were very nervous about getting their material on, and they would often pair up with a writer to help them. And the writer was in the same boat. The writer wants to get their stuff on just as badly as the performer does. So when you got there, did you kind of lean into your characters, or did you say, I better get with one of these writers and see what we can come up with together?
I think I leaned into my characters and the fact that like Groundlings, I was writing a lot of sketches, so I knew how to write. And
Yeah.
also I was kind of like, you're just like, can I ask this person? They've been here
Right.
longer. I was just a little
Yeah.
shy about it. So, the first thing I got on the air, like weekend update wise, I wrote by myself because I was just kind of like, this is the character I do. And
Yeah.
but that was just all like by default, just because I was a little bit scared. I
Was
think,
that Boxer's
That
girlfriend?
Midwestern politeness.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, JC.
Was that the
What was that?
Boxer's girlfriend? Was that the one, your first? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Hilarious.
that character is
Yeah.
so
Iconic.
Thank you.
great.
Yes.
And what's her name? Angela?
Angel. Yeah.
Angel, right.
Yeah.
So that is so funny. And I was watching you talk about that. You said that you sort of had this epiphany watching Jake Gyllenhaal in Southpaw, and his girlfriend in the movie kind of acted that way. And you connected it to Mark Wahlberg and Amy Adams in The Fighter. And you're like, wait a minute, I might be on to something here. And we had Seth Meyers on last week, and he was talking a little bit about specificity in comedy. And he was singling out the Andy Samberg thing where as Mark Wahlberg of, say hello to your mother for me. And you have these moments in Angel where you say, I'm taking the kids and I'm going to my sister's.
Yeah.
And that is it. There's something so specific and hilarious about that really obviously resonates with the audience. And is that something that you find when you write your bits, like, I want to get as specific as possible with this character?
Yeah. I mean, that one just by like luck, like touched on something that I think everyone was like, oh yeah, they do all kind of say the same thing. So it doesn't always work out that way because like what I think is specific, and sometimes the specifics I love about someone might be like too niche or, like I also find sometimes the audience is just like, I don't recognize that thing she's doing. That's too vague, where I think I'm like, ooh, this is what I like to tap into. So, I mean, I definitely love like specifics, whether it's, of course you want everything to connect, but like, God, there's sometimes where I just feel like, oh, like I love saying this line because it feels so real. And this feels like what someone would say in the moment, but it might not get the laugh. It's something,
Right.
It's like, that John Candy moment that I'm like, I think the funniest moment is him just going, yes, I do. And it's like, everyone else would be like, what about the hand between the two pillows? That's the funny, Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. And I do remember from when I was at SNL that first of all, the SNL crowd is probably, certainly among the best live crowds that there is, and they're a very smart crowd. They're there, they're ready to laugh, and they seem to kind of be with you. But then there are nights when they aren't. And it's just dead and flat. And now, have you had experiences where you go out with a character and it falls flat and you're just like, I know that was funny and that was just a dead crowd?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that like, it's weird because I've gotten cut a lot at SNL. And now I'm just making it part of my story. Like, rather than like feeling like something's wrong with me or like being in shame about it. Like, I think I'm the most like, as far as someone there currently, I think my sketches have been cut from dress rehearsal to air the most.
Wow.
I've gotten very used to seeing like my note card on the cut, and it feels very bad.
Right.
And there has been a dialogue in my mind that's just like, that audience sucked, or that and and I would always think that maybe that made me feel better, but then I also had to just be like, no, there's nothing wrong with them and there's nothing wrong with me. Like I'm doing everything I know how. I swear.
Yes.
And they're just
Right.
coming to laugh. And yes, sometimes there are dead audiences, like, and you're just shocked because you're like, I know this is a funny show, not just my stuff.
Right.
Yes.
But it makes it all the more special now when things connect. It also lets me just kind of like redirect the way I play the game a little bit, which is like, yeah, maybe I'm leaning in a little too much to the specifics. And for this particular thing, I'm doing SNL, which is like America's comedy. It's like got to span the
Right.
continent. Like maybe
Yes.
I'm being a little too specific, and they don't think this like niche thing I'm doing is as funny as my ego thinks it is. So I'm like, maybe be louder, maybe not be so subtle. Like, you're on camera, do it more for the camera. It's not a small
Right.
theater. So it's just made me like evaluate and adjust my play a little bit while also trying to like stay true to me.
Yes, and that is a tricky fine line because you say it's not a small theater when in fact it is.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
But it happens to be being projected out to
Millions.
as you say, across the continent.
Yeah.
And you also bring up an interesting part of Saturday Night Live that I think a lot of people don't think about. I think when people see the show, they kind of picture like, well, they've been working on these sort of 7 sketches all week, and but the process is. During the table reads, which
like
happen, I
40.
believe they used to happen on Wednesday. I don't know if
Yeah.
they still do.
So, yeah.
There were, 30 or 40 sketches in those table reads. And then it gets, there's a political meeting behind closed doors with the host and Lorne and the head writers. And they come out with a large list of maybe, 15 sketches. Like, these are the ones we're going to move forward with. So when you say, cut after dress. Like, that is the most heartbreaking time to be cut
Yeah.
because you've made it almost to the final hurdle.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, when you have your sketches and you see them on the cut list after dress, which is only hours before the actual live show goes on,
Yeah.
is it difficult for you then to be the team player who maybe has a smaller supporting role in somebody else's sketches, that week?
Yeah, I think in the past, for sure, like it was just like, your heart's broken, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
or like
totally.
my
It really
heart.
is heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah. But, especially this season, I've really tried to like just refocus that energy and that mindset and be like, okay, I'm still on a team. And even if I am not like gonna get the ball a lot tonight, then how do I make sure that like the person with it feels uplifted, supported,
Yes.
good? So,
Right.
I remember, there's times where like if I have a friend who's got like an update in the show, like Melissa Villaseñor and I would do this with each other. It's like, hey, do you want to come down to my room and we run it? Like just
Right.
get some reps in before the show, get more
That's awesome.
comfortable with it, or just reminding my other castmates to have fun, and that's where I just had to finally be like, listen, I loved comedy, and all of this stuff. I never thought I'd actually be working in it. I was a hairstylist. I got into this just kind of crazily by seeing a friend show and her saying like, yeah, do it. Like other people kind of pushing me along, my brother.
Right.
And then suddenly I make it to this thing I could have never dreamed of. And now suddenly I'm like competitive, and I was going against what I think my true nature is. Even though I want all these things, it's like, I gotta just get back to like, I'm here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
attitude. And
Yeah.
and I'll say for a needless buck up for you. I mean, clearly you are a comedy star because in watching your videos on YouTube, you have a Mojo top 10 Heidi Gardner SNL moments.
Yes.
So
Aw,
for anyone to have a top 10
Yeah.
SNL moments, that says a lot right there. So you're handling the ball quite a bit. I love all these sports analogies. So now here's something else that I noticed in watching many of your sketches and videos. It must be just insane. You've had to act like literally an inch away from like Oscar winners, huge movie stars. Like I'm thinking of when Matt Damon came on to play
Yeah.
your husband finally. And I've seen you in a hilarious sketch with Emma Thompson, or as my dad might call her, Emma Thomas. But is that when, because I know the pace of SNL is so hectic, and you're just trying to get from one week to the next, and you're so tired and all that kind of stuff. But do you ever have time to sit back and think in those moments like, holy shit, my face is 1 inch from Matt Damon's?
Yes. So in the moments, I'm just kind of like, I got to just do my job, or I have to act like my face isn't 1 inch away, or, but I have been taking more time to just like be like, wait, that happened.
Yeah.
I also try to also fulfill, like, it's also cool that it's happening right now, but the 16-year-old in me that was obsessed with Good Will Hunting, that I recorded Good Will Hunting on cassette tape and would listen to it in my car, like when I was first driving.
Wow.
And so
That's
I
incredible.
make sure,
Dedication.
yeah, I make sure that if I'm going to be a total pro the whole night, then like that night at the after party, I was like, hey, Matt, like, you know, I was like, thank you so much for doing that. But also, I remember the 12 brothers' names in Good Will Hunting: Marky, Ricky, Danny, Terry, Mikey, Davey, Timmy, Tommy, Joey, Robbie, Johnny, and Brian. And he was saying it with me. And I was like, yes. And that's the like
awesome.
16-year-old. And she gets one. Like, she gets a point, you know?
Yes,
Oh,
that's so awesome.
That's so awesome. And I'm totally with you on Good Will Hunting. Being from the Boston area. I mean, it's like, you know, that's our Godfather, basically.
Yes.
And that movie's great. I don't know if this is a sidebar that I talk about a lot on this podcast, but I'm really into reaction videos on YouTube. And you can watch people watching Good Will Hunting for the first time, and it's fucking fantastic. They don't know what they're in for, and they end up getting so worked by the movie, and like by the end they're just weeping. So I'm glad you love that one as much as I do.
Yeah.
Now you've been very generous with your time,
Yes,
and
thank
we
you.
just have JC. I don't know if you had any other questions, because I had one that I kind of wanted to wrap up with, or we can just get right to that.
Yeah, actually, I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
So when I got this job on Family Guy, I was working on Saturday Night Live, and the job came out of nowhere. We went on Christmas hiatus, and then the next thing I know, I just left SNL to work on Family Guy. So it turned out when I moved here, you and Zeb had decided that you were permanently moving your stuff to New York. And in the same weekend, I was here by myself. Stu was still in New York, and was in this house, had no furniture, no lights. And you had reached out and you're like, hey, I heard you just moved here. We're moving. We have a ton of stuff. Why don't you come over? We're giving a bunch of stuff away. So I went to your place. You have amazing taste. And we're still surrounded with lamps, Stu's favorite leather chair, my favorite lavender Le Creuset pot. All this stuff that you gave us. Not only did you give it to us, you also, with Zeb and a friend of yours whose name I can't remember, Rob brought it over in a U-Haul and brought it into the house. Yeah. A testament to the kind of person you are, and Zeb and your friend Rob. But I do have one question. Yes. Which is, do you want it back?
No, that's yours. I mean, I love hearing that, like, not that you need to be surrounded by my stuff, but I love hearing that you are. Like, it's like...
Oh, and I also forgot the coffee table.
Yes,
the mirrored one.
gosh.
That is a hit. Everyone loves that one.
Oh, good.
You'd need a U-Haul for the Creuset alone. Those things are
I know.
They
I
are
love
heavy.
that.
so heavy. So here's something I was reading. Your husband is a writer. He writes for Marvel Comics, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now, because we're ostensibly a writer's podcast here, and we're pretty surly, grumpy, angry, older men, is there anything you've noticed about in your decade plus of being with your husband about living with a writer? Is there anything you've noticed about a writer's mentality, or do you have to tiptoe around the house? Is he moodier than you are? Like, how does that work?
Well, you know, before I was also writing, I think I really didn't have an understanding of how freaking hard it is to be a writer. That, like, you know, it's like, yeah, of course I would have in the past just been like, well, you know, Zeb, why didn't you write all day so that we could hang out at night? Oh, what do you mean you didn't get it done? Like,
Yeah.
I'm here now. Why aren't you focused on me? Why do you still have
Right.
that? No understanding. Like, and I kind of hate that because it's just like, oh, like it's a painful process for a writer sometimes. The inspiration does not always come. And one of the really cool things about Zeb is like he's been doing this so long. He's been through all the emotions with it, all the processes, but like now he's like kind of got his process where and his discipline, which is really cool. And I think a lot of writers like finally get to that. Like they beat themselves up for a really long time. There's shame around it. There's just like,
I'm still in that stage.
Yeah. And then you just find your superpower and you accept the things that are hard about it and you keep going. And so yeah, I was probably tiptoeing around stuff, but I also know I wasn't like fully embracing like just who he was and the job that he had, you know, and now I can see it for what it is because I do it too. But
I hope my wife listens to this.
and do you think that now that you are a writer as well, that he has an understanding of how to give you the space, or is it like, wait, you're a writer now? Or was it an easy transition that you both became writers, or was it there's like an adjustment period?
I think probably he has always been really just understanding. Like for me, if anything, like he just has tried to, he just wants to make sure for sure, like he's protective, like especially, you know, he's like a genius with like structure for sure. So things that I've written that aren't even just sketches, like he's very sweet. He thinks I'm the funniest person in the world, but like he's gonna note me up on structure and things. And like sometimes when you just want to hear like that's the best, funniest thing I've ever heard, it can be like, oh, no, he's making me do math now. Like, like he's making me do the hard part.
Right.
But it makes it better. It makes it richer. It makes it, you know, more satisfying for the audience to read. So
yeah.
He's fully understanding. He's just trying to like help make me better.
Well, now one last thing, just to give you an opportunity you're very good on the show with voices and dialects and the specificity of different areas. Are there accents or voices that you've been itching to do that you haven't yet done?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, nothing's coming to mind, but yeah, I don't know why, but
well, just know that you're great at them. So
Thank
if you want
you.
to study, I always think an overlooked accent in this country that is hysterical is the Mid-Atlantic accent, which is sort of like Philadelphia down to Delaware,
Yes,
very
you're right.
flat and weird. So
hard to
I think
do.
you could be a pioneer in that territory.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Heidi Gardner, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to talk with us today. JC, thank you for setting this wonderful interview
please.
up.
Yeah.
We are huge fans and will continue to watch you every Saturday night in our homes. Thank you so much, Heidi Gardner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, I was pretty quiet that whole interview, wasn't I?
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Jeez, you were munching Triscuits the whole time.
They were really good. I don't allow myself Triscuits that much. So
You
I
went
just
through the
ate the
whole
whole box and then I got like a pasty bolus in my throat.
Oh, Bolus. William Bolus. Freedom. Well, no, Heidi was awesome.
Yeah,
And
thank you,
so
Heidi.
fun talking with her. And continued success on Saturday Night Live, Heidi.
Yeah.
And now let's get into a portion of the show we like to call Top 5. Top 5. Oh, beautiful. Goldy, this was your topic. What are we top 5ing about today?
Yeah, the topic is the top 5 best ways to die.
Obviously, the
Oh.
best ways.
Yeah. Okay. Number 5, blowing your brains out in front of someone you hate.
Wow, you're too good at this. That's amazing. What a first one. Oh, my Lord. Shot
Number
out of a
4.
cannon.
Number 4, crushed by whale while paddleboarding.
Oh.
Yeah, all right, maybe. Instant. Could be instant.
Number 3, super volcano.
Oh, what is?
Yeah.
I don't even
You
know
got
what
to
that is.
live through it. You got to see it.
Yeah. Like Pompeii.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Copy that.
Yeah.
Number 2, alien invasion.
Oh, that's
Might be
good.
happening. Could be
How
happening.
great would that be? The War of the Worlds, and you just saw them on the horizon, and you just said, "Nothing we can do now.
Not my fault.
Let's get out the chocolate ice cream and just wait."
Yeah.
And the number one way to die, rapture.
No, rapture.
No, rapture.
Oh, love it. Rapture.
I could have done 100 of these.
I know.
Oh my God.
That first
Wow.
one was
I
unbelievable.
wish you wrote mine for me because I felt so superstitious about it. Like, oh, these things, I was very afraid to do them.
What about
No, you're living
what,
to 108.
I know. What about Velocirapture? Is that anything?
Oh,
Would that be a good way to die?
Possibly. I'm next
Yeah,
because
go
you're
for it.
next week. So my number 5 is on top of a pile of cheese. That's it. My number 5.
That's right.
Number 4, I don't know. I was thinking in the metaverse, we could create like floating on a cloud of pillowy marshmallows with Stu and friends and family without a care in the world. Not even sure if I died.
Oh, that's. Let's hope we're heading that way.
Okay.
Isn't that what sleep is?
Good point.
Death practice.
Number 3, skydiving by choice. Just a big splat.
Yeah.
No, too much time before you hit the ground.
But you wouldn't know that you were
So
gonna
many
die
somersaults.
until
What do
you like you
would
don't know.
know.
Like, well, that you did, like you think your parachute's gonna open, but then it doesn't, and they just go poof. You're dead.
All right. Okay.
It's a theory, it's not. It's not real
All
life.
right. All right.
Okay, end of Titanic style. I know everyone's like,
Too
barf.
cold. Too cold.
No, not that one. The end of the movie where the old people they just die together in their sleep. I know
Oh,
everyone.
Okay. All right.
And number 1, I don't know, just happy. I just want to die happy. That's
That's
it.
good.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
good. You're back. You're back with number 1. All right. Let me get into this. Number 5 for me, guillotine. Just take it right off. It's over. Number 4, the Goldie, I feel is similar to one of yours. Ground zero nuke. Just
Oh yeah.
flash a light and you're gone. Your ashes. Number 3, heroin OD.
Oh,
Seems like
Oh, that's a good
very
one.
That's a good
pleasant,
one. Yeah,
from what I've
yes.
heard.
Yeah.
Number 2, peacefully in your sleep.
Oh, there you go.
Peacefully in your, whenever I read that, I'm like, yeah, that's a good way. And number 1, this is sort of the opposite of Goldie's hilarious number 5, but number 1, saving someone's life.
Oh,
If you die saving
martyrdom.
someone's life, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, the good news is
Wow.
you'll never have to worry about that.
I know.
Oh, man.
And I'm honest about that. I know I will never have to worry about that. That was a very fun list.
Oh my God, scared
So
me.
next week, this is kind of I don't know, this felt wide open. If you don't like it, I got a couple other backups. But I was thinking for next week, we could do top 5 French things.
Okay, you're a
I thought there were a lot of
Francophile.
interesting French things that
Goldie.
sort of float over our culture.
Giving
What
you the
is
look.
Goldie
No, it's
He's
fine.
giving you the-
He's leaning into the dashboard cam in his rental car. All right, so that's going to be top 5 French things.
Yes.
Next week, les choses françaises.
Francais.
All right, so let's end our show the way we do every week on a high note. Wow, was that longer?
No.
Okay, God, that was long. Thank you, Tom and Max. Tom and Max also sent in a very hilarious video where they did a whole bit, as you can imagine.
I want to see this
where
video.
that involved Tom collapsing and Max showing up with his stethoscope.
Yes.
It was a, and Jay Kogan made a cameo in that, so
Oh,
that was very nice
nice,
too. Thank you,
nice.
folks. So my high note, just as I talked about earlier, was my birthday, which was yesterday. It's still sort of continuing because I'm going to get to see a lot of folks this weekend, which I'm excited
Nice.
about to a point. And but the day yesterday was just so awesome. Tall was fantastic. She just did everything, but more than that, it was like it felt like there was a lot more lightness about the whole day. It
Oh,
was
cool.
just like everything was handled, every gift was great, every moment was thought of. she just did a great job. So my birthday was fantastic, and that was in large part thanks to Tall. So thank you, Tall, for
that's
that
lovely.
wonderful high note.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to sort of add to your high note and Goldie's nice sentiment from earlier and say, my high note this week is you.
Oh,
It's your
come
birthday.
on.
Oh, come on. Come on. He's waving it on. I want to say welcome to the 50s Club. Goldie and I have been waiting. I'm like, finally, happy birthday. Thank you for your warmth, your kindness and generosity. And thank you for, trying to be patient with me all the time. I know it's difficult.
Oh,
but
please.
I notice you trying.
You're a breeze.
I don't know about that.
By the way, everything you just said is going to be used to cancel you in the next
Why?
couple of years. Did you
What?
say this about Alec Sulkin?
Did you say he was warm and kind? And generous?
It's very
But-
sweet, JC. Very sweet. And Goldie, you already said your piece, so please make it about Hertz or something.
I'll make it about something else because it's your
Thank
it's your
you.
birthday request. So I was very concerned last week. My dog was not himself, and then he wouldn't move, he wouldn't walk. We took him to the vet, and they didn't detect anything with his blood work, and then they x-rayed his spine and they found a swollen disc, which listeners of this podcast will know I think is bullshit.
Okay.
But I was still concerned nonetheless, but I decided to just sort of treat it as I would my own swollen disc and make him comfortable and calm. And wouldn't you know it, the little guy is back
Ooh,
to his
Yeah.
mischievous ways.
nice.
Yeah, Lloyd. Lloyd.
I'm
Lloyd,
very
Lloyd,
relieved because I
Yeah.
thought for sure my dog was like maybe on the way out, but he
That's
seems
No.
So wait, it wasn't a disc or was it a disc?
he does have a swollen disc, but I don't think that's what made him sort of,
Yeah.
act with a lot of malaise.
Yeah.
I don't know what was happening, but
But he's back.
he's back to sort of trying to steal everyone's food
Oh,
and
good.
running
That's
around the
awesome.
house and trying to escape and just being a menace, which is
Okay.
what I love.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
Great
good.
news.
Thankful.
Great high note. Thank goodness Lloyd is going to be around for another decade. I'm calling it at
Yes.
least.
I hope.
At
Yes.
least. Well, what a fun show. Thank you, Heidi
Yes.
Gardner. Oh, and before I forget, guys, listeners, folks, you can't say guys anymore.
Folks.
We have a great guest next week, talented writer, Mr. John Rigi, from all of our favorite shows, 30 Rock, Larry Sanders Show, and The Comeback, which doesn't get nearly enough credit. Hilarious show. We're going to be talking with him next week, so be sure to tune in for that. And I just want to say thank you two for your awesome, loving birthday messages. It really means a lot to me. I'm trying to figure out myself, but hearing nice things from you two really sets me off on the wrong path. So I appreciate that. And I want to thank all of you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
No, we won't.
Typical disgusting display.
That was fun.
And it stops right now.
Marky, Ricky, Danny, Terry, Mikey, Davey, Timmy, Tommy, Joey, Robbie, Johnny, and Brian.